Hello.
Good morning.
Hello.
Hello, Henry. How are you today?
I'm fine. I just think about what could I do with a, rainbow-colored unicorn. Too many options.
I've got, I've got a few ideas.
I'm hoping this means that Victor's like gearing up to like build us this, right? That's how I'm interpreting this question. Cool. So I'm not sure if Igor is around. I saw Sean sign off. Ahmad's late, so he was a tentative, so I won't wait for him. So let us kick things off. So Skabek, you have the first item.
Yes. So Pages, the service, last week was not fully in Kubernetes, if I recall, in our demo.
It wasn't in Kubernetes at all. I think we were gearing up for,
it was
we
at
were
least
in
in
Canary.
staging.
It was in
Canary, that's right. But now the main stage is also being served inside of Kubernetes as well. So we have started the cleanup process. I've sent a bunch of merge requests over to Henry, which he's been reviewing. So, there's a few of those that I'm working on. I did accidentally do one thing out of order, I guess. Compared to prior services, I've always done our runbooks repository last, just because that repository is really difficult for me to work inside of. So yesterday, when I removed some of our virtual machines, I caused an incident because there was an alert that fired, which I feel bad for because, I had left for the day. So I wasn't able to be like, hey, it's okay. I just turned off the virtual machines. I'm sorry. So that's unfortunate, but I'm taking care of that today. So I've got a merge request where I'm removing or I'm adjusting the runbooks repository, which should adjust our alerting and our saturation metrics and the node metrics that get reported inside our dashboards to remove them because we no longer have those virtual machines at all. So again, cleanup has started.
So I'm just going to make a note of that because these are the things which actually we've had a really great run this year of doing API and then web and then pages super close to each other. We're not guaranteed to always maintain that, so it'd be great for us to start kind of like getting this stuff documented so we build on this. So it's remove VMs before. No, remove runbooks.
Remove or adjust runbooks as necessary prior to removal.
Okay.
Which I don't think we've ever done in that order. So I think we just have like a special alert dedicated to pages that didn't exist or for other environments.
Yeah. We may have also just got lucky on timing in past ones where, like if you'd have been working at that time, you may have seen it and jumped on it. So it could just be of luck in the past as well. Cool.
So outside of that, the next thing I'm working on is the blocking nature of what I removed now that we're in Kubernetes.
Great.
We had the listen proxy option was added to GitLab pages, but we were blocked on enabling this because our Helm chart did not support this. So earlier this week, that change on a Helm chart has been made and merged. And yesterday, Henry and Graham both helped me get our Helm chart upgraded in all of our environments. So today, I'm testing in pre-prod at least the changing of this option and validating that it works as we deem necessary. And then hopefully I'll get that pushed into production and then the GitLab pages team could continue forward with that.
Amazing. Great stuff. Did you get to the bottom of, so Jason mentioned on Monday that there was a bug in pages. I haven't followed up since then. Was there anything we needed to worry about?
No, nothing we need to worry about. This was where the misunderstanding came in with our Helm chart. The initial thought was this option was supposed to enable pages to listen for the proxy protocol, but that's not the case with this particular option. This option enabled us to listen for the appropriate proxy headers, which HA proxy is responsible for setting and sending to the pages service. We already do this in .com, so it's just a matter of adjusting what needed to be tested on that merge request, which was completed and subsequently merged in.
Awesome. Great stuff.
So finally, the last thing with this migration was, I'm guessing the testing methodology I used for validating that stack driver was pulling profiles for GitLab pages was flawed. This is a feature I'm not entirely familiar with in the first place, but apparently it does not work properly. So right now we're not getting profiles out of any of our environments. So pages, the pages team has responded on the issue that they don't really look at these often. So I've kind of been considering this lower priority. So I've been concentrating on other work such as release management and cleanup first, and then I'll circle back around to why this is not working. They're using the same library that Workhorse is using, so it's actually a little bit confusing as to why Pages doesn't work, but Workhorse does.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
This might require a little bit of digging into LabKit to determine how it works, and maybe also validating the same version of LabKit that's installed in both Workhorse and Pages. Maybe there's a module that needs to be upgraded, or maybe there's something else going on. But I did validate one interesting thing in that the something is making a call to the metadata endpoint asking for the host name, which is a little bizarre because that's not really something that's important when you're running inside of a pod, especially for profiles, because we don't capture the host name anywhere in the profiles in the first place, that I know of at least. But in pods, that endpoint does not work. You get a HTTP 404. So there's that. But for some reason in Workhorse, this works just fine. In Pages, I confirmed the same endpoint works just fine. You get a 404, but you know, the same behavior works. But for some reason inside of Pages, you end up getting a timeout. So I'm not really sure where that is spawning from. So it requires a little bit more investigation. So again, I plan on pulling that eventually, but I'm working on cleanup and fixing this proxying thing first.
Okay, sounds good. If you need any help on any of that stuff, if we need any extra support, either debugging or we think it's something deep inside the application, just give me a shout. It was a question that got asked in the Kubernetes migration working group was like, do we need other people to help? At the time, I said, no, we think we're fine. But if that changes, then just let me know.
Will do.
Awesome. Great stuff. Well, huge progress compared to last week. So nice, that seemed like a super smooth, quick rollout to production.
It worked out quite nicely.
Awesome.
Would have been faster if I wasn't release manager, just saying.
Of course. I mean, a lot of things would be faster if we weren't release managers. One thing I haven't done yet, but which we should do when we close out this epic is do a big shout out, because this epic closes out stateless services. A huge milestone on this migration. I wonder if, so we should certainly do a little shout out, but I wonder if we could almost pull some quick stats. I mean, I wonder if we have any fun stuff that we could, like, do we know roughly how many VMs we've killed? Or, you know, it'd be super fun to actually post a what's going on and have a, you know, like we've been doing this for 3 years and this is the kind of high level. We don't want to spend ages on it, but if we actually had a couple of things, that could be fun.
Yeah. All right, that sounds good. I'll try to, I think Jar put together a dashboard, so maybe we could pull some information out of that dashboard. That might be fun.
Oh yeah, that could be fun. Yeah, because it'd be super nice to have something that we could just shout in, like say what's going on, give something that people can have a little click in, and I mean, we should shout regardless, but it would be lovely if there was a little visual or a stat or two that goes with this. So.
Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, Jarv sounded pretty quiet when I chatted to him earlier, so maybe we could engage him in our fun project. Awesome. So we've got the next item as well.
So yeah, during a code review, I had mistakenly ignored the path in which a certain change was rolled out, which is unfortunate. So this caused a problem when we tried to bump our Helm chart because we saw that change being rolled backwards, which is exactly what we were supposed to avoid in the first place with vendor chart directories. So I created an issue to address. And Henry, I see your suggestion of having a directory called vendor. That makes complete sense. So we should probably add that as a comment on that issue, such that whenever we get a chance to pull this, we could make whatever changes are necessary. I'm a little bit more concerned. Go ahead.
Yeah, it just came to my mind that if you are not really into that repository, then you don't really see that these charts are vendored, right? And you should work on that. So I guess that explains why that happened. This wouldn't be a perfect solution, right? It would just help for people new to it, maybe to don't make this mistake. We should anyway still have some a job checking this, I guess, but could help maybe.
So we do have a job checking, but apparently it's not working properly, I guess. Because it did not fail when that change was made and that merge request didn't get flagged in any way, shape, or form. So I have an issue open to address that bit of, I guess that's tech debt or a bug within our tooling that's not working properly. So we should consider pulling that soon to avoid stuff like that.
Yeah. What order do you want to do? Should we open a separate issue to move the vendor charts into a different directory, or just do it all as one thing?
We could do it all as one thing.
Okay. So Henry, do you want to add that onto the existing
put
issue?
it in the issue. Yeah.
Perfect. Do you think this is something that Ahmad would be like? Is it something which you could make a decent stab at alone, or do you need the context to kind of be able to get started on something like this?
No, it's just a simple shell script that does a very simple diff of some kind. So I think it's easy enough where anyone could pull this.
Okay, so I'll add a comment on there, then maybe see if he can like take a look through and see if he can find a way, like maybe spot what's going on here.
Graham is the one who built it, so if necessary,
good.
Rope him in as necessary. But yeah, I think anyone should be able to figure this out. It's just a matter of spending the time on it. That's all.
Great. Okay, that sounds good. Awesome. Great. Is there any other stuff you want to go through about the vendor charts?
Nope, that was just kind of like a, hey, we should, work on this.
Yeah, should figure that out. Awesome. Sounds good. Great. So you've got number 4.
So the future of clusters. I wanted to raise this, Amy. I think I've had this conversation with you in a one-on-one, but I haven't had this conversation amongst a team in any sort of call. So I just kind of wanted to raise or highlight a concern that I have, especially when it comes to future-proofing our requirements for the future. I'm a little worried about if we ever need to rebuild any of our clusters for any reason at all. I've already identified that, or Jar rather has identified that the IP address scheme that we're using in our zonal clusters is not very optimal. We're limited to only 255 nodes entirely. And that's kind of scary because if we run out of IP addresses, we can no longer scale and that cluster could be pretty much out of commission. We do not have a good IP address schema right now for our zonal clusters. We kind of just plucked from what we had available to us. In the future, this is going to be problematic. Even worse is our regional cluster, where we do have a decent IP address schema today, but in order for us to rebuild that cluster, we can't reuse that IP address scheme. We have to have a new available set of IP addresses that we could utilize, the new site or subnet that we could use. And for that, we don't have. And that's kind of a problem. And even more so, And if we want to upgrade a cluster because of a change that is not compatible with our existing clusters, we do not have a story on how to accomplish this today. Our GKE module is not flexible enough. We don't have the tooling necessary to be able to handle more than the current number of clusters today. It's not easy to modify our tooling to account for this. And there's a lot of manual labor involved in both the creation of a new cluster after we figure out the story of building the cluster. So I've got concerns because we already know that our IP address scheme does not work properly in our zone of clusters. We have problems with Calico, and we are attempting to band-aid that instead of a permanent fix. The permanent fix for that would be to switch to the data plane version 2, which is not a change we could simply upgrade to. We have to replace the cluster if we want to go down that route. I think we need to really consider trying to figure out how to rebuild our clusters soon. Because this is going to be kind of problematic if we keep going on and keep delaying this problem.
Yeah, absolutely agreed.
Yeah, I think this also would be a topic for resource efficiency, right? If we want to be more efficient with our workloads, we would probably want to consolidate several of the smaller clusters into one big cluster, because it just helps to mix different workloads together to make better utilization of the resources we have on our nodes. So I think that would be also worthwhile to work on. And that, of course, then needs us to have a way to create a new cluster and move workloads over, and also come up with a cluster which is working good enough with enough IP address space and everything like that. So that would also play into that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I don't know how to fit this into an OKR, but this is a problem. So this is probably something we want to start looking into next quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, like, beyond just time to think about this, what do we need to be able to figure this out?
Is this at all a topic that we as a team should work on? Just questioning. I mean, I think it's a good place in our team, but theoretically, it also sounds a little bit like maybe scalability and general, work on Kubernetes. I mean, we always did this kind of work, but the question is, do we want to continue to own this, or do we want to maybe spread this?
We can figure that out. I think, let's
start with that question, because that might govern who works on this and who picks that up. I don't want to waste brain cycles if we've got other stuff we want to keep migrating over in the first place. Anyways, Redis is coming up soon, and there's other things that we could take out virtual machines. So that's kind of what we and our team has been focused on. So it might be worth trying to figure out a good owner for this particular issue.
So what is required to solve this problem? Like, is it literally just someone needs to spend some time, or is there specialist skills and knowledge required?
Terraform is definitely going to be required for this. Knowledge of how our tooling currently works will be important, but that's going to be not just us. That's also going to be the GitLab Helm files repository that we don't mess with very often, and that's also going to be the Tonka repository as well, which other people have built. Networking knowledge is going to be very important in here.
Okay. I could definitely see as an argument for it to fit in any of the infra teams, to be honest, because I don't think there's a single team that holds all of these pieces. And it could be a candidate as well, I think, depending on what's involved in needing to do the rebuild. Perhaps it's one that fits cross-team, like we're doing with Redis. I think, what do you think about the fact that, Scubbit, you finished being a release manager on the 22nd? How about, as your next big task, is you pick this up as a investigation, and see what how far can you get on actually figuring a path out, you'll need to pull people in. Like you actually probably will need people across infra, but maybe that would, if we could figure out perhaps like, what are the big pieces? What are the risks? Like, how do we think we could go about doing this? Maybe that would help us work out where this should actually sit for, like, perhaps it's a Q1 or Q2 OKR to actually implement it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
One possibility for why it might be particularly interesting for delivery is, I think in this use case, it's a very much a reliability kind of scalability use case, but being able to spin up clusters easily in an automated way is a massive one for deployments. So I think we perhaps more than anyone have a interest in it being like super automated and easy to add clusters.
You know, since we're trying to hire a new SRE, this might be a perfect opportunity to leverage the skill set of someone that we recently interviewed who has built some tooling with Kubernetes in mind.
Could be a bit ambitious at this level, but it would certainly gives us, I guess that's the other thing, right? It certainly gives us a bit more capacity in the team to have people who can maybe help figure this stuff out. But let's see if we can figure out for the first step. I think it will be it'll be more of a kind of a discussion of pulling items, seeing if we can spot where are the gaps and problems. Like, you know, what would prevent us just literally spinning a cluster up tomorrow? And once we know all those things, perhaps we can start to figure out a plan.
I think we're all going to be very, very amused by the answer.
Yes, I think there are some things that we may need to adjust our approach on in order to make this work.
Yeah, so far we've treated each cluster very much like a pet.
Yep. Poor Scruffy
everything has been
to die.
very handheld, which is fine because, you know, we iterate as we move along. But now we need to get into more of the automation of being able to rebuild things quickly, or not only rebuild, but also build additional stuff and manage all the tooling that talks to those clusters. And that's going to be the biggest, that's probably going to be the second biggest part, because networking, I don't know what we're going to do with that yet.
Yeah. And if we can get it narrowed down to those bits and actually then be like, okay, the gap is networking, then we can figure out who do we need to bring in to help plug that gap.
Yep.
Awesome. But yeah, I fully agree. Thank you for bringing that up, Scarpet. I fully agree that we need to have some kind of a plan to be able to build a cluster, because it's not super clear right now how we do it.
And to be clear, I'm not trying to steer away from GKE at all. I'm just trying to address the fact that our clusters currently are not set up for future success.
Okay.
We're going to eventually run out of capacity just due to the nature of how we set things up. Or if a cluster fails for any reason, we don't have a quick way to rebuild it.
Yeah.
We've got it documented. But if we need to reset secrets, we don't probably have all the places where a secret needs to be configured documented probably. And, you know, we're going to be blocked quite greatly, especially if it's our regional cluster, because that's, you know, where all of Sidekick lives currently.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, let's figure out what the big pieces are, the big gaps that look problematic. There's definitely some stuff which is a problem that will be manageable, which is all of our kind of dashboards and things look to cluster names. That's just how we set it up, right? That's not an unsolved problem, but it is work. But yeah, things like secrets could be harder to solve. So.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so the last item, well, before I go on, any questions? Any other concerns?
Beside that, sounds great.
Helm file. Graham dropped a comment. I don't know if he created an issue. I did not see one, so I suspect not.
I don't think I've seen
the
one.
Helm file Yeah, it's looking like the Helm file project is kind of dwindling. That has me nervous because we heavily rely on this project right now. Our tooling is kind of like reliant on the fact that Helm file exists. Being that we are using JSONet more and more, despite the fact that I don't know how to use it very well, I wonder if we want to try to consider converting our existing project to using Tonka. Maybe not using the same repo, but maybe just converting our existing repo to Tonka instead of Helm file. Just because it's JSONet and it's not Helm file.
What does this mean for customers?
Nothing.
Like, do we lose like dog fooding?
No, so as long as we're still using our Helm chart, we're fine. Helm file is a project that we chose to utilize to better manage all of our various environments and various clusters. So it'd be more like we just convert our use of Helm file into how Tonka uses it. Tonka? I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't like the word.
I guess it's Tanka, right? It's an A. So.
Didn't we have an issue for that since a long time from Green to look into converting our JSON into JSONnet, maybe using Tanka? I mean, he mentioned this several times, right? That he would like to look into that.
Possibly are. I don't think there's anything that's super actionable. I think they're kind of quite general, like as a concept.
Yeah.
Would someone mind either pinging Graham or see if it's an issue, or open an issue that captures this so we can prioritize? Like, what I guess, what's the risk of the switch?
Okay, he does have an issue, it looks like. So the risk is using a project that's, no longer usable. So if we come across a bug, or if over the course of time Helm gets upgraded and then Helm file is not compatible with an upgraded version of Helm, we risk the inability to appropriately deploy. So we need to avoid that. Right now we're fine.
What's the risk of moving? Like, what's the possible disruption of the switch?
We've got we're leveraging quite a few features of Helm file. So we would need to find new ways of using those same features.
I see. Okay.
Like, we're using the templating capabilities of Helm file on top of Helm in order to generate our releases and manage our auto deploys. So we would need to figure out a way to carry that over into JSON in some way, shape, or form, into Tanka.
I see. Okay, awesome. Great.
So it's not going to be a quick, easy switch over, unfortunately.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah. That's good to know. Okay. Okay, let's see if we can get this prioritized. Like, I think this would be a great one for us to prioritize in like a kind of POC and see if we can get that somewhere, and then start seeing what's involved. And then again, I think it's going to be a case of probably have to make a bit of a plan around like what are the steps involved and how can we get those fit those in.
I think maybe Henry's question about our prior issue may be able to apply here as to, determining who should be the appropriate owner. Like, the only thing we care about is the fact that auto deploys interact with it. But theoretically, like, all the configurations and how that repository works, like, anyone in infrastructure should be responsible for this.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pawn off the work. I'm just trying to
No, it's a good question. Yeah, it's certainly a good one about
delivering.
Like ownership of Kubernetes, that kind of the longer term ownership of Kubernetes is a bit of a open one. Okay.
By the way, talking about this, don't know if you saw the discussion from today's DNA meeting, which is now called, I also always forget the new title of this meeting.
We'll call it
Reliability.
DNA.
Yeah.
It's called the reliability meeting. I don't
Yeah,
go
right.
because of that. It's not an infra meeting.
There was this kind of suggestion coming up like, we sometimes get alerts for staging for Kubernetes stuff which is missed, and so something could break there without being noticed. And then the idea was how to just send those alerts to the delivery team, which I said, no, please not. But this
we're
is
about to send all of those alerts back.
Yeah.
In fact, they already duplicate into production, right? Like we certainly can't action those, right? So
yeah, I mean, the point, like people are expected expecting that the delivery team is working on Kubernetes because we did most of the time and did a lot of the stuff, right? And
yeah,
so that's why this is happening, and we need to maybe see how we spread this more by not doing all of that always. I mean, it totally makes sense to work on some of the things we just mentioned because they help us a lot. So we should pick some of the stuff up, but we can't handle all of that, I guess, because we don't have enough people right now. So we need to choose what of that we want to do really, and what we maybe can spread out to other teams.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think generally, I think if it's something that will need to be actioned by the engineer on call, delivery is certainly the wrong place, right? Like, because those people can't be expected to be looking there. Most of those, like if it's critical for our infra to be running, that's not a delivery thing, right? We're not being paged for that. So it therefore is if we happen to see it. So that's why I don't think those alerts should be coming to delivery. There's definitely a bit of a question around like, I think the Hellfire one is a great question of like, yeah, anyone could do it. We probably don't have super strong opinions actually about what's in place there, as long as, like you say, like as long as our auto deploys hook into it. So that one is a little bit, I guess, almost becomes the modern Kubernetes maintenance task, right? You don't have to upgrade your OSs. You do have to handle your Helm files. So perhaps that's something we need to make a plan for. Do you know, like off the top of your heads, like what are the other things like Helm files that we, like projects that we depend on that are things that need maintaining, that like we don't, like, you know, like they're not like the GitLab chart, but they're things that do need to stay up to date?
All three of the repositories in k8s workloads would fall into that category.
Mm.
And I guess the ability to speak to our single source of truth, which is still in Chef for some items, and as well as the Chef Vault or GKMS in this case for secrets, for example. For the Tanka repository, they manage secrets manually, which is unfortunate, but I think, you know, we at some point we need to address that as an infrastructure. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all.
Okay.
And I guess, you know, our tooling, like the Runbook's repository, relies on being able to speak to our clusters and such, but I don't think they have any specific ties to Helm file or things like names and stuff would be repetitive, or there's links between those two repositories that depend on naming being specific. So like if you change the name of a deployment of one location, you need to make sure you make the same change in Runbook, for example. But I don't think that's the question you're asking.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, let me follow up on that one, because yeah, it looks like we're gonna, I mean, we already are kind of talking a little bit, and we've got like a lot more Kubernetes knowledge in the department now. But I think we do need to make a good plan for how do we actually like separate out some of the Kubernetes from the improvements to Kubernetes for deployments, which clearly us, improvements to Kubernetes to aid our migrations, which is still going on, because that's us, and then maintaining Kubernetes to keep it like secure and running, which can be us, but it would also be ideal if it wasn't only us. So I'll see what we can do there. Awesome.
One nice thing I just also noticed today from the reliability discussions meeting is that we now use Renovate bot in the config management repo, which is a bot which is trying to update dependencies, right? Can talk a lot of languages and look into a lot of tools. Just came to my mind that we could also try to make use of this kind of automation to track if we are, not up to date in one of those repositories where we use Helm file or other tooling that we need to keep in sync and stuff like that. So we could maybe look into leveraging this also for our tooling.
What does the tool do?
This tool is running in pipelines where you include it, and it will look into a repository. For instance, if it finds Terraform modules and would automatically look into if something needs to be updated, if there are new versions, and then would prepare a merge request. You can choose if you do it automatically or if you want to, by yourself, want to choose to do it. It will annotate it with all the changes that are coming in and things like that. And it understands a lot of languages and tooling, like Docker images and stuff like that. And because we talked about what kind of repositories do we need to keep up to date, I just thought we could maybe also look into using this bot for us, because it could help a lot in some of those cases.
So like theoretically, with our use of Helm file, and we do use a few Helm plugins, theoretically RenovateBot could tell us, hey, your plugin that you're using is, old, consider upgrading, and here's how to do it. We also use GCloud, for example, to pull secrets, and we've got, actually I can't recall, I think we just use a shell script to pull data out of Chef, so maybe nothing important in there, but at least it will tell us, your GCloud integration is out of date.
Interesting.
We certainly don't want to get into a position where GCloud gets out of date to the point where it becomes unusable, because that would block deployments and that would be bad.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Let's see if we can take advantage of some of that stuff. Is our tech stack getting simpler, or is it getting more complicated?
With RenovateBot, I think it's making things simpler, because you just plug it in, give it a little bit of configuration, and then it will just run through and inform you of things that you could do, and you can choose then to click a button, and then it would happen for upgrading things. And I think this is quite helpful. I was impressed by the one example that I saw in the config management repo. Looked really nice.
And and generally, like in GitLab infra, is infra simpler now than it was 2 years ago?
Speaking of RenovateBot, or for updating dependencies, or
for working in GitLab infra?
Good question. I wouldn't say so. I think our tooling got more complicated because we added more and more of that, right? And
that's kind of what I was
more layers of abstraction, of course, everywhere.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That was what I was feeling. I was wondering if I was the only one, but yeah, that was a little concerning, right? It feels like we've added a few layers and abstraction and stuff. So maybe we'll simplify one day. That's it. Let's hope. Also, is there anything that we practically can do there? Is there anything that we could actually create an issue for a task to help us with that, or is that a kind of wait and see type of task?
I think we could maybe ask Felipe to work on that for us, because I think he was the one bringing this up with RenovateBot. And why not trying to involve him to have a look if we can include this in other repositories, if he wants to work on that, because he started with that anyway.
Okay. Do you want to get an issue maybe in like with a sort of proposal for where the repos that might be useful for delivery, and then see if Felipe is interested in looking or advising us so we can kind of try it out as well.
Yeah, I will do that.
Awesome. Great. Is there anything else anyone wants to go through?
I do not have anything.
Yep. Okay. Super. Great. Thanks so much for the discussions and items today. Great work getting pages out to production, and yeah, great to see us kind of looking at the sort of next phase of improvements and tidy up and things. So yeah, nice work. I will see you all later on. Enjoy the next few minutes. Take care. Bye.
Bye.